Hello and welcome to Note to File, a clinical research podcast.
A collection of interviews, candid commentary, and general nonsense for the clinical research community.
Check us out at notetofilepodcast.com.
And now, without further ado, on to the show.
All right, guys, welcome to another Note to File. Denali, how's it going?
Man, it's going good. I feel like it's been a hectic week, but it's going good. How are you?
Yeah, today's not my favorite day, but it's okay, because we're here to talk about clinical research and welcome our guest today, Patrick Mizer. Did I say your last name right?
You did. Yeah, people overthink it sometimes and come up with some really interesting pronunciations, but yeah, Mizer.
It doesn't matter what your last name is. Your last name could be Smith. I always try to ask before I go live, and right after I hit the button, I was like, shit, I didn't ask. But I didn't. I tried not to overthink it. I tried to just be phonetic and, nailed it.
I'm just thankful you didn't hit me with the Pat. Sometimes people make that assumptive close, and we've got issues.
So you know what? We talked about that before you came on.
Yeah.
We were like, I wonder if he goes by Pat or Patrick. So no Pat.
No Pat.
Okay, that's fair. I respect it. Well, very good. Welcome. Today is August 27th, which means today is National Burger Day.
Okay. I could get behind that. I feel like I don't eat burgers often, but occasionally I like a good one. I don't know.
Patrick, burger preference?
I was just thinking about that. Yeah, I'm a big, growing up, my parents would make something called a Greek burger. Has some bell peppers and cheese inside and breadcrumbs. So burger fan.
Interesting. In Oklahoma, we have the onion burgers, like the famous thing. We don't have a lot of positive famous things in Oklahoma, but the onion burger seems to be one. It's basically just like a smashed burger with like a ton of grilled onions on top of it. So it's basically if you eat that for lunch, no one will talk to you for the rest of the day. That's
fair. Wisconsin has Culver's is now like a national thing. I don't know, Patrick, where are you located?
I'm in Austin, Texas.
You're in Austin. Okay. Yeah. So I don't know if they have Culver's there, but it's a fast food restaurant burger place, and they have the butter burger. So it's like a burger that's cooked in butter, and real good, as you would imagine, but probably not so great for you.
Do you guys prescribe to there's a lot of emotion around the best fast food burger? Like here in Texas, we have Whataburger, which I think is, well, I'm not going to say this live how I feel about Whataburger, but is that something in Oklahoma and Wisconsin? Do you all have your local In-N-Out or Whataburger or?
Yeah, so we have Whataburger too. We also, Brahms is like the Oklahoma thing, which they may have some of those in Texas as well, but it's like local dairy, yeah, it sounds like Culver's with Wisconsin, so
yeah, it's like Butterburgers and custard. We don't have Whataburger, we don't have In-N-Out Burger. We have like the more like national chains, like whatever, Wendy's, Hardee's, McDonald's, etc. But like our equivalent is Culver's, is what I would say, and they have like cheese curds and custard, and leaning into the dairy state thing pretty hard.
What's the best barbecue in Austin, Patrick?
Man, that's a good question. The traditional is Franklin, right? So Franklin is the place that you go and you wait, you camp out, you meet the locals, you meet some of the tourists, you wait 4 or 5 hours. I think there are equivalently good barbecue spots where you don't have to wait as long. La Barbecue is a good one here in Austin. Terry Black's another good one. And there's some stuff kind of off the beaten path. There's a place called Opie's Barbecue about 45 minutes outside of Austin. That's really good. So it just depends on whether you want the full experience of sitting in a lawn chair and drinking a beer at 10 o'clock in the morning before you get your barbecue, or you just want barbecue. Yeah. I
was going to say, that sounds like a lot to wait for barbecue, but then if you frame it like sitting in a lawn chair drinking a beer waiting for it, I was like, oh, maybe I could wait. Maybe I could do that.
A lot more fun. I do miss. I lived in Austin briefly. It's been probably almost 20 years ago, but I do miss the taquerias in Austin.
It's the one thing I miss when I travel is the breakfast taco scene here in Austin.
Yeah, it is good, but Austin's a very different place than it was even 10 years ago. I guess it seems like it's exploded in a crazy way.
I think that's right. I was going to ask you, I mean, you were here 20 years ago as a musician. That must have been a fun time. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it was the place to be. I mean, there are times when I wish I hadn't left. Although again, it's very, very different now than it was then. But I think if you're young and you want to play music, go live in Austin, because you can play a show every night and it's going to be to a different crowd, because there are hundreds of venues. There are venues with 3 different venues in one building. So like you're going to have somewhere to play and practice and get your reps in,
I will say that's what's changing, though, and I think that's the fun thing to say in Austin. So I was born and raised. I've been here my whole life, and it's people move here, and every 2 years it's Austin's over, and Austin's been over every 2 years for the last 3 decades. But that is one of the things that is truly happening. Is a lot of those music venues, the ones you're talking about, are no longer here. And then
last time I wanted to go to Emo's, which was like big deal, famous, and I'm like,
yep,
that side of the highway is gone and shifted to the other side of I-35, I feel like. And I was so confused. It made me sad. But
absolutely.
That's what happens.
Well,
the gentrification of Austin. That was the big thing when I lived there, is everyone was complaining about.
Well, we'll be in Austin in February, correct? SOS is in Austin this
that's
year,
right? That's right. So
when is it? Is that February?
It
March?
is
sometime
February.
So
it's a good time. Anyways, sorry, buried the lead here. Patrick, welcome to the show. I'd say start off, but tell us a bit about yourself. What got you into the clinical research field, and why can't I get paid as a clinical research site? Maybe we can save that for later. But let's hear a little bit about you and your background, what you're doing.
Yeah. So first and foremost, thanks for having me on today. My background is not super traditional clinical operations. So I've been in software my entire career, coming up in Austin. Growing up in Austin, going to school here, was exposed to sort of the startup scene, the tech scene here in Austin in the early 2000s. And I got really addicted to applying technology to solve various problems. And I think using technology as an inroad to understand really specific domains, and then seeing how there's some pattern recognition that could be deployed across those different domains. And so I've done software in the finance space. I've done software in self-storage operations. I've done software in short-term rentals, wireless internet. And about a year and a half ago, I had the opportunity to come into LedgerRun as an interim CTO originally. Really fell in love with the space and the technology in the company here, and decided to make that my full-time job. So new to clinical ops, have learned a ton through kind of deploying technology, particularly on the site payment side of that. But yeah, it's a little bit of my background. I've been started a few software companies, worked as CTO at a few software companies, and joined LedgerRun about 2 years ago.
Cool. So for those who aren't familiar with LedgerRun, what do you guys do?
Yeah, so the easiest way to say it is we handle all of the interactions between sponsors and CROs and their clinical research sites as they pertain to getting paid. So we do that all the way from the helping the sponsors and CROs navigate the negotiation of the clinical trial agreements, all the way to budget creation and ingesting the EDC and invoiceable data, referencing that against the budgets, and making sure that the sites get paid on time and what they're owed.
So it's your fault.
Try to be part of the solution, but yeah, believe me, I've had some calls the last couple of weeks where it was my fault. So,
I mean, look, these things happen, but I mean, I'm curious. Like, it's obviously feels like a trope at this point, but like, sites don't get paid on time. When they do get paid on time, I was just going through this today, like a payment drops into my checking account from, not picking on anyone, but let's say Icon. I don't know what I'm even being paid for. I don't get any kind of remittance. Like, is this Am I doing something wrong, or is this an industry problem that you've that you've seen? And if so, I mean, just give me some color here, because sometimes I feel like I'm an idiot.
For sure.
Two things can be true.
I mean,
that was my line. You stole my line. Yeah, both can be true. But no, look, I think it's one of the things I was surprised about when I first got here is I think the bar for what is accepted from clinical research sites in terms of getting paid on time and understand what they're getting paid for is incredibly low. Some of the stats I heard when I first got here, I thought people were misspeaking. And that's what made it really exciting for me, again, as somebody who likes to bring technology to solve problems. It feels like in the space of clinical operations and life sciences, this has not been a super sexy area that's received a lot of investment. And I think as a result of that, there's a lot of status quo thinking around what is acceptable there. And what really excited me about the LedgerRun group is this was a group of people that kind of jumped into this niche, the folks that started the company, and said, we can do better there. And that's been really fun as we've started to introduce technology, starting with more traditional deterministic software that just gives you kind of like a Domino's pizza tracker of like, hey, when am I getting paid? What's the status of this? What am I getting paid for? And then transitioning to some more really interesting AI-empowered technologies that are making that even more seamless has been really fun.
Do you think it's getting better? I think it's gotten better over the recent past.
I think it has. I think there are more companies competing in the space. We're one of them. There are a few other competitors there that are starting to do specifically site payments. I think as the technology has gotten better and it's become more accessible for sites to, take a step back, one of the key challenges that's probably obvious to folks that have been in the industry for a while that I picked up on is that sponsors and CROs for a long time have had places where, hey, you can log in and see what you're going to go get paid. But as a clinical research site, that can quickly turn into 50 different things you have to log into and passwords you have to remember, et cetera, et cetera. And so there's this weird kind of push and pull there on like adoption of technology is what will enable more on-time payments and better situational awareness around how folks are going to get paid. But there's kind of this kind of like lack of understanding of what that really looks like for research sites. And so I think things have gotten better in some ways, and things like single sign-on or having like one identity that can be used across a bunch of things. But I think the real unlock for that is going to be some of the things with agentic AI, where you can really meet sites where they are, and you don't have to interact with a portal anymore. You can send an email off somewhere, and that just automatically gets ingested in an automated way. So you kind of get the best of both worlds. You're not having to remember 15 different logins, but you're still interacting with a system that's going to keep you updated on where your payment is, make sure you get paid on time with quality.
Yeah, I'm curious about that. And I'm going to go maybe a little bit deeper, but I also want to ask, in your experience, because this is, again, something from the site side, I feel like, did you point out, you guys aren't the only ones necessarily in the space. I have a feeling it's not also necessarily a huge space, but do CROs and sponsors like put an appropriate amount of value around the importance of site payments, do you think? I mean, I feel like as a site, sometimes you feel like, man, they got to be doing this on purpose, because there's no other reason it could be this bad. Is it something that they've value but haven't had the technology to do well? Is it actually legitimately maybe that hard and we just don't realize it as sites? Or is it just sort of an afterthought in the bigger, grander scheme of things that sponsors and CROs are dealing with?
Yeah, it's an excellent question. And I think it's a combination of, I think it's actually a combination of two things. I think one dynamic that's existing is it's almost like this marketplace dynamic where there are two different parties working on opposite sides of this, value exchange, which is, providing service and getting paid. I think part of it is there is the sponsors and CROs are thinking about the site experience as it pertains to them, but it's hard to think about the dissonance of them operating across multiple sponsors and CROs, and it's just hard. I think if you're not living that, it's really hard to feel the pain. And these aren't people that are, software UX experts. They're clinical trial experts, right? They're R&D experts. And so that's one thing that I've certainly picked up on working with some of our customers. But the other thing that's really coming online, and I don't know if this has been a longstanding thing, but I'm certainly hearing it a lot more in my 2 years here, is sponsors in particular are starting to think about site experience as part of their brand, right? So in a world where competition is increasing for the best clinical research sites, being able to tout that, hey, you could just email us an invoice and you'll be notified immediately on sort of where that is, becomes a way to win some of these sites over. I spoke with one of our customers that said it really succinctly, right? Which was, we provide these big strategy decks, and we have these, we have brand recognition and whatever else we're talking to these sites, but more and more, the reputation of how easy it is to work with these large logos is what's driving, creating those relationships with the sites and ultimately reinforcing the brand of these sponsors.
It's interesting because I have heard that sort of over the space, like the power dynamic is shifting. For like a long time, it was, sites, you give us your data, we'll pay you when we get around to it. Like there wasn't a whole lot of focus on the sites being able to dictate or, have much power within the relationship. And I think in a lot of different ways, we're seeing it switch where, or at least holistically looking at the market, the trend or the discussion has been sites have more power, sites have more suasion and influence. Brad, are you seeing that? Are you feeling that?
Well, I mean, I think you've also seen it. Like, we've been to conferences where there's a lot of discussion around sponsor of choice. How do we become a sponsor of choice? And I mean, I'll admit, I'm the most motivated to work with the company who's going to pay me on time with the most clarity and the least friction as possible. I mean, I got kicked back an invoice for the third time today from a company because, I don't know, I think there was missing like a weirdly specific code that had to be pulled from some other document they generated at the beginning of the study. And I'm like, for God's, like, you know what it is, man, come on, what are we doing here? Like, are we, we're playing match game, or like, what it is, it's going to pay me or not? And the problem with that is that it took them 2 weeks to tell us the first time. It took them another 3 weeks to tell us the second time. And so pretty soon, 3 months have passed and you're not even entered into the queue to get paid yet. So now you're going to be sitting on a 6 month, 9 month, God knows how long payment. Anyways, that's obviously a little tangent.
Do you have any remediation in those situations? Like if that happens?
I can say that your monitor is not coming onto my site anymore until you pay me. And that then you become, a difficult to work with site, and no one, everyone thinks you're a jerk, and all we want is to get paid. But to your bigger point, or to your original point, I do think there is some more, at least, talk about it and whether or not it, turns out to be true. And I'll say, I asked earlier whether Patrick thinks it's getting better. I do think it is, actually. Payments do seem to be becoming more timely, at least in a more timely way. It's still not a lot of clarity sometimes around payments. Again, when you're being paid by one CRO for 7 studies and all you get is like, here's a deposit, and you're like, well, how am I supposed to even know what this is for? And you got to track somebody down. And let me ask you this, Patrick. This is a conversation I've seen arguments about versus the platform versus not. I know you kind of touched on it a little bit. So do you guys have a site like a site facing platform
we do. Yeah.
And how are sites like respond to that? I've actually considered, I'm like, it's great. That's better than what I get 99% of the time. But I know some other people in the field on my, the site side are kind of outspoken against, we don't want another platform. And I say, hey, I'll take a platform if it is useful to me. And that's useful to know. Has this been processed? Is it in a draft form? What's missing from here? I should be getting paid for. At least I have a place to see something valuable.
I think it's exactly right. I think the time that I've been here, the narrative for us has changed a little bit from, it reflects your perspective as well, which was, hey, early on, hey, it's yet another platform or another portal we need to log into. I think we've shifted through that where, largely I think sites are seeing the value in that. And I think that's a function of things you called out, like, hey, we have detailed remittance. You can see what you're getting paid for and why. You could dig into the status of existing payments. And if something went wrong, you could understand kind of where that is. So you're not sort of in the, your call will be returned in the order it was received. The long tail for us, though, is there seems like there are certain geographic areas that just won't do it. They never will do it. So there are sites and sponsors are, hey, if you are a Spanish site or a French site, right? They're just never going to log in, whether that's policy or just they're not going to go do it. And so a lot of our, we feel good. We have, largely across our platform, we have about an 83% adoption rate of, sites that are engaging with the platform. And so it's going and figuring out what to do with that other 13% and not making that a big arduous thing on the sponsor and CRO side. To deliver a consistent experience across all of that is sort of the latest frontier and challenge for us.
And so are you guys also sort of running in the background between, sponsor, CRO, and is it possible, like, I'm getting paid by a CRO or sponsor through you guys, but I don't know it just because you guys are managing it, but I'm not privy to a platform?
Yep, 100%.
Okay.
Yeah, that can be true. Although you would be getting, depending on how the sponsor or CRO has it set up, you would have access to the platform as well.
Fair, so, got it.
Yep.
Interesting. Is there anything you guys offer, or do you work directly with sites in any way?
Not as much as I would like to. I think that's going to be a sort of shift in focus for us. Largely, our customers are the sponsors and CROs. And so we spend a lot of our time from like a product and engineering perspective, solving for their needs. And as luck would have it, right, the needs of the sponsor and the site are largely similar. Is like remove the amount of operational burden it is to pay people on time. But I would like to spend some more time, and as we're kind of moving forward with some of this AI stuff we'll talk about later, and kind of closing the gap on that last 13%, really getting a perspective from the sites around how they want to be. I'd like to remove the middleman. I think it's 80% accurate, right? But I think there's probably some 20% nuance where hearing from the sites a little bit more directly would drive some better product intuition for us.
I think there's this is just, again, a sidebar. I think clinical site finance is a little bit lacking in tools. You've got your CTMS. Most CTMS systems are trying to do, everything that there is to do, which means most things aren't actually that good. There's like a few things that are pretty good, and the rest are maybe kind of half-assed. And I feel like finance is not one that's been well addressed, at least across the CTMS systems I've used, and especially so, it'd be interesting to see a platform that's sort of agnostic to sponsor or CRO that sites could manage. And I know that gets tricky because that might have to involve some sort of integration or API with your CTMS. But you're doing invoicing, you're worrying about your auto pay. It's very tricky to track that, even in CTMS, which are ostensibly built to do that.
I would say a lot of CTMS on the market don't do finance well. I think it's just inherently out there. I mean, I'm wildly biased. We know where I work, right? Like I have I vested interest in certain CTMSs, but just across the board being in the space for a while, I think you're right. I think accounting, especially on the site side, has been something, and I think it's interesting. I think it is indicative of the tools that are in the space for sites specifically, but I also think a lot of sites just don't. And I don't know what's chicken or egg scenario here. Is it that the systems are shitty and so they just don't do proper accounting, or that sites themselves are just not necessarily thinking about finance in the right way?
I think it's both, but I also think you're playing a guessing game as a site when you log, you log a visit and you're like, I should be paid this much for this visit, because you're kind of playing imaginary numbers because you don't know what you're actually going to get paid. And you may not even be able to reconcile it one-to-one because you're not getting a line item reconciliation. So you can say, I saw patient 1, I did an ICF, I did a blood draw. It should add up to this much money. Well, here's a check for $1,500. Okay, well,
good luck.
For what? Yeah, and for what? If it's even the right study, or what is it? And I think there are still people using spreadsheets to do this stuff. There are CTMS. We're kind of using a mix of CTMS and something like QuickBooks to do some of our invoicing. So just go ahead and go build us something, Patrick. All right.
We're working on it. Yeah, it's interesting. So we obviously, things that come through LedgerRun, that there's always a remittance. Is that you said a couple things here that makes it sound like most of the time you're just getting a deposit in your bank account and reconciling that yourself. Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say it's getting perhaps a little bit better, but I still think it's extremely common that's the case.
Yeah. Interesting.
Which is frustrating, as you can imagine.
For sure.
Do you still get paper checks?
There are a couple of small biotech companies that have will send paper checks. Actually, one of the biggest pharmaceutical companies in the world actually was still sending me a couple of paper checks here until recently, which I don't. But I will say, usually with a paper check, there is at least a reconciliation that goes along with that. So part of me is like, sure, send the check. At least I know dollar for dollar what you're paying me for.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to go back to sort of the AGI thing. Like, how do you see that potentially impacting site payments? Is there a way that can? I'm very sort of naive, which is a nice way to say an idiot when it comes to AI in general.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess, how do you see that potentially positively impacting site payments?
Yeah, well, I've changed I'll start with just a little bit about how I think about AI, and I think it's changed materially for me in the last 9 months or so. I think I've personally kind of shifted from in being a technologist, right? There's a lot of hype, right? For a while, it was big data or blockchain or cloud or whatever, and these things oftentimes turn out to be not as transformative as they're laid out to be. So I think all my
NFTs are worthless.
You're spying the wrong ones. I'll talk to you after the show. I got something I gotta tell you.
Okay. Yeah, I get it.
But recently, what I found is that given the right conditions, right? And I think the right conditions are you have a task that requires a lot of context with human supervision in the loop. I think agentic AI can be incredibly valuable in its current state today, and I think it negates a lot of the inherent issues that we're in the euphoria stage of AI that people don't talk about around hallucination, lack of context, cost, etc. And so I think I'm fortunate, we're in this kind of hype train around AI. I'm working at a company today, LedgerRun, where I think we have all of the ingredients to really apply AI in a way that adds real value and is not beyond sort of the current capabilities of AI. And so, on the sponsor CRO side, as I did kind of customer visits and product discovery sessions, what I observed is there's a bunch of information coming in various formats across invoices. To kind of talk about your paper check thing, I had a chuckle when I first got here. I was talking with a customer who their invoices were printed out of a computer, scanned, and then re-put into an email and sent to the site. So they were all askew. And it's like, how did we get there? But you just get this heterogeneous data, and then you have all of these like disparate systems that folks are bouncing back and forth around to ultimately reconcile. Is this invoice appropriate given the budget, and does it match to the protocol activity, and are there exceptions? And the way that works today, largely, right, on the sponsor CRO side, is there is someone whose job it is to download the invoice and look at it line by line, cross-reference it with a spreadsheet or subsystem, and then say, yes, this this matches up, and then there's another human being that quality control checks that. And again, this is just the perfect strike zone for AI right now. Is the people on the left hand side of that, that's relatively low value. They're clinical ops specialists that really understand corner cases and exceptions, but like physically downloading the PDF, looking at it, cross-referencing with their sheet, is a place where I think AI works incredibly well today. And then what it also has, which is really important with any sort of AI adoption today, is you can't let it run wild. You have to understand how well it performs relative to the control, right? And so the cool piece of that is you can start to run tests where you have a human being that I've talked to a lot of these people. The least favorite part of their job is having to download those invoices and type it in. But you can set up an agent, right, that's powered by AI that's doing that same thing, and then compare it at the QC step to see, like, hey, are we getting the same level of efficacy there? And so that is a place, and that's what we're kind of focusing on right now, I think, is that invoice ingestion, or taking that data that's coming in all these different formats, taking a fuzzy data format, structuring it using kind of pretend reasoning, human reasoning, and putting that into a QC process where humans are still in the loop.
Yeah, I was going to ask, because it's not really, a lot of things are opaque to us, like at the site level, and it sounds like you can answer my question, but our sponsor CRO team still manually cross-referencing all of those things? It sounds like they are.
They are, yeah. And one of the cool things about LedgerRun, and another thing that brought me to the company, was we not only write software that we sell to sponsors and CROs, we also have a team that will use the software on behalf of smaller SMB sponsors and CROs. And so they're using our software every day, and I can go sit with them and actually watch how this happens. And so as we were developing some of this feature functionality, I sat and worked on that team for a couple of days and watched as a human being was doing exactly that. And so that is happening not just within the walls of LedgerRun, but also at all of the big pharma companies and CROs that we work with, and we're displacing that sort of low value work.
Yeah, because that is crazy. I mean, think about, as a site, sometimes it's not even clear what triggers payments. Whether it be EDC entry, but there's not just EDC entry. Did you upload images? Did you tokenize the patient in another system? So then you're potentially able to, or having to, cross-reference multiple systems to ensure these payments are being made. And I feel like that's it'd be cool to have a feedback loop, because if AI could do that, it could come back and tell me, hey, you're missing 6 image uploads, so we can't pay you for these patients. But we can pay you for the 10 that you did do. Because that's, again, something that is hard to manage as you do running a lot of studies with a lot of patients across multiple sites.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. And it'll be interesting to see there's another interesting thing kind of breaking out in AI right now, which is how receptive human beings are going to be to interacting with that AI. What I will tell you is that the technology exists today to do exactly what you're describing, right? So you could send in some information, the AI communicating through these APIs called MCP are talking to different systems, and they can respond to you in a really human way around what might be missed there, or whatever else. I think the interesting thing right now is more psychological around, what human beings hate is the, please describe your problem to the tone, right? And so navigating that piece of it is going to be interesting over the next couple of months and years here around how, whether that's helping or hurting.
How receptive have the folks been to be incorporating AI into these workflows? It used to be something manual. There's again, more the psychology than the actual technical ability. What's been the sort of reaction or responses you've gotten from folks as you've had these conversations and introduced AI in this way?
So far, it's been really positive, right? And it's a tricky subject too, right? Because there are all kinds of, you can read all kinds of fan fiction out there about how AI is going to replace everybody, but I think that's kind of some of the same conversation. If we were alive and before the Industrial Revolution, it would have been like all our jobs are gone, there are no farmers anymore, right? But it elevates people to go do other things. That said, part of me was legitimately concerned on how that was going to be received by the folks using this, right? Because it is displacing. If your job is just it's no one's full-time job just to download the invoices, but if that was your full-time job, this is going to do as good of a job as you are. But what I think we've seen internally and what our customers have seen is it's now elevating people to do higher impact work, and it's increasing operating margin, right, for these for these sponsors and CROs. They're all under a lot of pressure to run more studies, higher volume, less cost. So what we've seen in reality is a lot of excitement about how we can get AI into the system. And kind of just candidly, the funny thing is a lot of excitement, and then we get to procurement. And it's like, oh, AI, let's go figure out the 9,500 different things we've got to check the box on to make sure that we're okay implementing the technology. That's been the only thing that's been slowing us down, candidly, right? Is just figuring out new technology and how that plays in a highly regulated space. But the general attitude around it has been bullish.
So that's sort of currently what you're doing, like sort of where you're focused now with AI. Where do you see this in the next, and maybe it's kind of hard because it is evolving at such a clip, but like, where do you see you guys heading next?
Yeah, I think where we're headed is, being a technologist, there's been a lot of software that's been built around this concept of system of record. And if you think about, a lot of the SaaS software that you use on a daily basis, behind the scenes, what you're really doing is like, you, a human being, is interacting, and you're passing information from your brain into a system, and that system storing that in a database somewhere with some validation rules and business logic, and hopefully you're getting some automation along the way that makes you more efficient. And that's, software has eaten the world over the last 30 or 40 years, right? In terms of very few people are doing things pen and paper anymore in any domain. I think with AI, right, and this isn't my concept, this is the thing other folks talk about, but it's the system of record is kind of turning into the system of action, right? And so people are starting to think about buying software suites in which activities are being done, right? And that's what agentic AI is enabling, right? So instead of human beings typing those things in, they're now agents doing that. And I think as we think about like our longer term roadmap, we're looking at the things that our team internally is doing on behalf of our customers that's relatively low value, doesn't require an expert to sort of do. And it's usually like 30% of some expert's job that they're spending time on there. How can we pull that into a supervised workflow where you start to think about, instead of entering things into a form, you start thinking about pressing the plus button and adding additional agents that are taking on that type of work, where the software is delivering outcomes instead of delivering an interface for a human to play with. And then figuring out how you because there's always a human in the loop here, figuring out what that starts to look like in terms of how the humans that are overseeing that interact with the software.
I really like that. I haven't heard that phrased that way, but I like the idea of like its system of record is now a system of action. And that's a really like succinct way of explaining like the fundamental shift that AI is causing in some of these platforms.
Sure.
Yeah. So you guys are nerds, huh?
You're one to talk.
Oh, I thought we bonded over bright eyes earlier.
I mean, it also has its own level of nerdiness to it, but I think, but in a cool way, right? So I'll take that. I would love to interact with an AI chat bot that would tell me how much money I'm about to be paid. So make that.
Yeah.
I mean, to your point, I guess, it is sort of depends on what the use case is, whether I want to talk to AI or not. And if it's something like that, sure, let me do it.
What did I see the other day? It was someone at a drive-through and they had like AI trying to like do the drive-through order, and it was like, I want 3 stacker tacos, and it was like, sorry, we don't have those. And it was like, yes, you do. So it was like, I will have 500 waters, please. They're like, we'll connect you with a human. And so it was like this idea of like, when do you want to work with AI? When does AI work? And when does it not? Because I was like, that's a pretty brilliant way of doing it. Just like give ridiculous requests until it's like, this is not outside of my operating parameters. I'm going to connect you with the person.
Yes. Yes.
It's the old press 0 to talk to an operator.
Yeah, pretty much.
But I think that's the different thing about AI, maybe relative to some other technological revolutions that we've seen, right? Is I think the way that AI became on the roadmap of everyone's kind of collective consciousness was through like ChatGPT or these like interfaces where you got comfortable, and it's crazy and like probably a different way than when the computer or the internet came online. My 75-year-old aunt is playing with ChatGPT and interacting with that and getting a level of comfort with that, which I think is a tailwind to all of this, which will kind of improve the adoption. It won't be as scary and jarring as folks are learning how to kind of do that on their own.
Yeah, I think it would probably help if some of the main faces associated with AI would stop saying ridiculous things.
Yeah.
I would be a lot more happy to, play with ChatGPT if I didn't know half the things Sam Altman's said, that makes me a little more nervous. Not the thing itself, it's the intentions and backgrounds of some of the guys who are, the faces of these things. I think that can adds another, whole nother layer, obviously, but I think not to be disregarded.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. But the interesting thing about that even, right, is you can kind of pick your flavor. So you can pick your captain of industry of choice, and you
say which flavor of unapologetic capitalists do you want to back? I mean,
right. Have you guys seen that where it's like this? They did an experiment where they basically took like a simulation and they had it run by each of the main, like they had Gemini, they had 1 through Anthropic, and they had like run the society, like same instructions, same parameters, and then what happened in those respective societies when they were being run by the different companies, and like one like starved and like no one did anything, one was fine, one like went massively into crime, and then they put them all together and how they all interacted. So I mean, there's different flavors of AI, different flavors of unapologetic capitalism.
Different flavors of dystopian futures.
Correct. Yeah.
Again, I'm being a little facetious here, but I mean, sometimes it's hard to reconcile the personalities behind it versus like the product itself. I mean, I have trouble with that. But
how is that unique to AI, though?
It's not.
I think it is a sign of the times, though, right? I mean, I think it's maybe more about social media and 30 years ago, would you have known anything about the CEO of whatever?
No.
Right? Yeah.
So it's just like they talk about, like, Michael Jordan would have had a much worse reputation if he was being followed and tweeted about constantly, 30 plus years ago. Because, just as much bad and probably worse stuff happened, but we just didn't really know about it.
I think that's right. Yeah. So dystopian futures aside, how often are you interacting with AI on a daily basis?
More and more. Yeah. But honestly, I feel like not in any super useful way. The way that probably most people do administratively. I want to build me a slide deck that I don't want to build, when here's my inputs or whatever. I honestly do like to occasionally, I used to really pride myself in my ability to Google things well to find what I wanted. And like, that was like its own skill for a while, right? Like now it's like how I can take that over into AI and like get maybe better data, better ideas, do better research that way. So I guess I've kind of used it in that regard, but I don't have bots running things in the background for my business or answering my emails or plugged into any of my stuff. So I'd say it's still a sort of casual consumer basis, I guess.
I think that's right. And I think your Google analogy is spot on, right? I think, sort of seeing the way that people who were able to, because Google, like the indexing of the internet and having all of the like human understanding of all time available through like a search was a huge deal. And I think a lot of the AI chat interfaces are the next extension of that. So learning how to shortcut all of the, I don't need to go look up the answer to this thing. I can find it right here and expand on that really quickly is a really important skill.
Yeah, we'll see. I feel though, I see, people talking about all this crazy shit they're having, Claude or whatever do in the background. And I'm like, dude, am I like not, am I behind the times here? Or like, is some of this bullshit, or is this, a lot of it seems unnecessary to me, but it's hard to know what's legitimate and worthwhile right now, you know?
I think your instinct is right. I mean, I'll tell you, as somebody that lives it every day, I think 80% of it is bullshit, but the 20% that's not is, I think, really interesting and transformational. And I think that's where we are on the euphoria curve right now of AI.
No, makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah.
Very cool. You got any other questions, Denali?
No, I think this has been great. It's been a fascinating conversation.
Yeah, it's been great hanging out with you guys today. It's been the best hour of my day today.
Sweet.
So far. So far.
Still midday.
Just wait. You got more time.
I'm looking at my calendar. I think you guys are in the catbird seat. Yeah.
All right. Sweet. I'll take that. I'll take that as a big win. Where can people find you online and learn more about LedgerRun?
Yeah, so check out LedgerRun. LedgerRun.com is our website. You can learn about what we're doing there. I am embarrassingly not super plugged in social media wise, but reach out to me on my LinkedIn. Patrick, not Pat Mizer.
Love it. All right. We'll make sure we post links in the show notes. And man, thanks for coming on. We'll be back. We'll be back Tuesday? Or we won't be back Tuesday?
We'll be back next week. Which means I don't know.
Perfect. Awesome. Patrick, thanks again, man.
Thanks for having me. Thanks, guys.
Later. Thanks for listening to Note to File. We're committed to continuing to bring you independent and unfiltered coverage of the clinical trial industry.
We want to talk about what you want to hear. So if you have something on your mind, hit us up at notetofilepodcast.com.